Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric Seropian, and I have a return guest, Michael Neese.
How's it going, everybody?
So today we wanted to touch on the subject of podcasting, which seems to be a real trend and everyone's talking about it, but I feel like they don't know exactly what it is. And Michael's background is, one of it is in film and kind of pivoted over to podcasting. So I wanted to pick his brain. Give us an idea, where did this whole thing start with podcasting?
So a podcast is actually, in all reality, it's actually a pretty old technology. Back in the day, it was originally something that was known as audio blogging.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it had its roots dating back to the 1980s. But with broadband internet, high-speed internet, and everything, it moved, and what it is it's really the portable digital audio playback. I know that may sound like a mouthful, but when the iPod debuted in the early 2000s, like right around 2003, 2004, I don't know the exact date, that also with it came the ability to now take these audio blogs and put them somewhere. Whereas before you probably had to find a way to play it, and maybe you had to do it on a computer that was a big bulky machine and it wasn't really portable. But now you had these little portable audio players, and so people could take their audio blogs, which then started to become known as podcasts because of the iPod, became more popular. And I believe it was Adam Curry who created the first. He's kind of considered to be the father of podcasting. He was doing it before pretty much anybody else was. There may have been a few other people doing it at the same time, but he really took it kind of into pop culture, if that makes sense, and made it popular. I believe, I don't remember who it was, but I think it was like Rolling Stone or one of the big pop culture magazines in the early 2000s did an interview with him basically of what is podcasting and why should you be doing it. You can Google it, you can find it. But in a nutshell, it's a radio show. It's an audio recording. You do it however you want. Some people do talk shows like this. Some people do actual like radio plays, like back in the day with old Dick Tracy and the things that they would do in the 1940s and 50s. And I grew up on audio cassettes of those, and so I love radio plays. Now they're called scripted podcasts, but they're dramas, they're comedies, and things like that.
Gotcha.
But for these purposes, we're just doing basically like an interview talk show. And what it enables us to do is to really kind of do what's called niching down. When you find a niche, it's like an area of expertise. Whereas, you may be a vet, but you're primarily a racehorse vet. So vets learn all the animals, how to treat pretty much very broad, but then they specialize. And so with this enables people who are what's called subject matter experts to talk to a specific audience in a way that we never could before. When the iPhone came out and then Android and all these portable devices came out, it kind of started to push new life into podcasting. And then within the past few years, as cellular data speeds have gotten faster, podcasting has started what's being seen as a podcasting renaissance. So it's becoming to be all over the place.
It's interesting because when you talk about subject matter expert, a lot of times, you have an expert in a field, and then they really don't know how to talk to someone that doesn't understand that field.
Correct.
And so it's kind of like, you have a doctor that comes and, is trying to explain, what's wrong with your foot. And they talk a lot of things just go over your head. And so when you have someone that's an expert in a field that can go to the level of an average person and make them understand what it is, I think that's a gift.
It's a complete gift. It's a gift, and it's a skill that people can learn. So if you're thinking, I don't have that gift, like I always talk to people about what I do, and it's like their eyes glaze over. What I've always heard it said, and what's a really great exercise, is tell it to me as though I were 5 years old.
Yes.
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
And if that doesn't work, explain it to me like I'm 4.
Right. Exactly.
Go back as much as you have to until I get it.
Yeah. And so, if I was going to explain a podcast to you like you're 5 or 4, I'd say it's people talking about something that they know about that they can share with other people on their phones.
Okay. And this is something that, you can find episodes on iTunes, YouTube, and then other platforms like SoundCloud and some others are taking on.
Yeah, so podcasts originally were only available through iTunes. So iTunes, when it came out in the early 2000s, first it was only on Mac, and at that time, not that many people had Apple computers. And then they released iTunes onto Windows, which expanded it out. But you could download, and this was the process of getting a podcast. It was really frustrating because you had to sync your iPod every day. And if you got a new episode, it would load it onto your iPod when you synced it, which means you had to plug the cable into the computer. You had to go into iTunes and you had to say sync.
Wow.
And then it would put the podcast episodes on the iPod. And then you'd go into your car, you'd put it through your tape adapter into your car, and you'd listen to the podcasts on there. So it wasn't really on demand. I mean, it kind of was, but not like it is today.
Yeah, there's a bunch of steps that we're skipping right over today than we did before. Absolutely.
So now there's a podcast app on my phone. If you have an iPhone or an Android, there's a podcast app that's there. Google has their own podcasting app. These are just built in. But then there's third-party apps, which are built by other companies who only build podcasting apps. There's a company called Stitcher. Then we all know Spotify for the most part.
Of course.
And so Spotify is really the biggest player in podcasting right now because even if you don't pay for Spotify, you can get their podcasts.
Okay.
It's free, entirely free. And businesses can advertise. They can pay to advertise in Spotify's podcast platform.
How so?
So Spotify just recently, within the past couple of months, released a ads program where, starting with a minimum budget, I think it's of $250. I'll have to check their site to see the current prices. You can pay to essentially get your ad. I think you maybe have to record it. You have to meet their standards. It has to be a certain length. But you do a radio ad saying, here we offer the best dog teeth cleaning service in the South Bay. And so when people are listening to a podcast on Spotify, either in between podcasts or in there, all of a sudden these ads will drop. So the podcast will pause and an ad will play just like on the radio.
Okay. Kind of like the beginning of a YouTube video where there's an ad before, or sometimes
it's exactly the same thing
in there. These days, it seems like YouTube is sticking in commercials like 5 to 15 seconds everywhere.
Right. And, and it's to the viewer, it's annoying. But now YouTube wants you to pay $12 a month to get rid of ads. Get our other premium services you didn't want. But, at the same time, Spotify, they have this platform, which is good for people who are trying to get the word out about their business into podcasts. And it's going to get better. Like, it may not, like the goal with these things is to pair somebody who's talking about like animals, maybe put an ad about an animal service in there. Like
exactly.
That's the goal.
Or else it's worthless.
Completely.
You have to find the target market.
Right.
And then get in front of them with your message.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so the podcast in and of itself, these are free services for the most part that people can access from any of these podcasting apps. So if I can go into the podcast app on my phone or on my computer, and I can search "This Is My South Bay," if it's in there, and I'll find it in there, or whatever podcast I'm listening to, so like Joe Rogan. So I'll go on the iTunes thing, I'll search Joe Rogan, and it shows me his show, it shows me his reviews, and it's got all the people who've rated it and reviewed it in there, and I can listen to sample episodes. And so this is served up from a server where all the files are living. There's some technical things on it that most people don't want to worry about. But just in a nutshell, it's basically you're able to go into those apps and then listen to these episodes. And it's great because a lot of times when I search for businesses or people, I'll go into Google and I'll search, let's say Joe Rogan, for example. He's one of the most popular podcasts in the world. But
I'm a big fan. I love him.
Yeah, it'll show me links to his podcast right inside Google search results.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm getting specific about a person, like if I hear about Eric Seropian and I go in there and I Google you, I'm going to see these types of things listed in there to where I can actually go find out more about you. Why is this important? Because if you're a local business and someone's trying to find out, do I really want to send my dog to, this vet down here on Crenshaw? Is this a good place? I can read reviews. Well, if that owner of that vet is on a podcast, because their name will show up. I've seen it happen in podcasts that I've done. And, you listen to them talk and you think, wow, they sound like they're really great. They're friendly, and I want to go there.
No doubt. But plus, you're kind of, if you're the potential customer and you hear that, in this case, the vet speaking, you almost form this bond with that vet, and it either clicks or doesn't, and so if it clicks, then you're just like, okay, I trust my pet with this vet. All right, like the reviews are there, the website's there. I got a little bit taste of what this person is about from the podcast. Let me check out their social media reviews, whatever, and you're like, boom, let's do it. I would feel way more comfortable
completely
because the internet is still very impersonal, and so you have you're just looking at your computer and trying to make a decision on what to buy or what service to get, and so when you can make it a little bit more personal, where you can open the curtain and see what is behind the brand, and you can get to see the company or the doctor or whatever it is, that's a game changer.
Completely.
And I think that podcasting, among a couple other things, are helping kind of bring the internet along into the next phase.
Yeah, and you can take these podcast files, and there's ways to put them in what's called an embeddable player on your website. So when people come to your website, they can listen to what you've recorded there as well as the other places. There's a lot of options for it, and to me, it just increases your rapport among them, which, in my opinion, when I'm looking for a business, if I already have that good rapport, I'm going to be more likely. Like I drive like way further than I should for my vet, because when I went to that vet, I had a good feeling. It was referred to us by people that we knew, and they know my dog.
Exactly. And it's an important subject.
Right.
So you don't want to just pick a vet that you kind of feel okay with, but it's around the corner from your house.
Right.
As opposed to a vet that you really feel like you're dialed in with them and they understand your pet. Then it becomes like, okay, I'll drive, whatever it is, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever the case may be, to go to the right vet, because it's your pet. Like it's a serious subject.
Yeah. And this applies to, your doctor. It applies to your accountants. It applies to, every area that we have in our life. If we can remove the fact that, we're in a very large metropolitan area here and make it feel more communal, I think more people are going to go for that. And I think they're going to like it.
Agreed.
And it's I go to this doctor because they actually spend time with me and they listen to me, and they don't just push me in out one door and out the other. And you can convey that if you're a doctor in the area, thinking, man, I want people to know that this is what I'm like. Like I'm not like everybody else. This is a great way to let your unique personality show. And it's a great way, I think, if you're scared and thinking, oh man, I'm just not good at talking to people. It's like, you're good at something because you've gotten to where you are and you can figure this out. And this is a great way to learn.
And everybody has their niche. Everybody knows something that most people don't know as well.
Yeah.
And the example that you gave about the doctor, I had something a couple weeks ago where I took my dad in for an exam, and it's his primary doctor. We had been in the waiting room for at least an hour plus, probably an hour and a half. And then they took us in. We were in the room waiting for the doctor to come in. We're there for another half an hour. The nurse came in and she said, the doctor's busy with other clients, with other patients. Would you like for me to read the results of your blood test? And we're like, no, it's been 2 hours. Like, we've been waiting. So we would like to talk to the doctor. The doctor knows my father. My father has complications. It's not a blood test of a healthy 25-year-old person.
Yeah.
He's had all kinds of issues. So no, I could probably take that report, take it home, Google the results, and come up with some kind of an understanding of what it is. I need a doctor, his primary doctor, to explain what's going on. Why are these indicators in the red? Why are these things low? Why are you suggesting to cut back this medication and add these other medications? Like, talk to me. And I think that whatever business we're talking about, I don't care if it's your mechanic or what, your marketer, your whatever, you want to feel like they know you. You're not starting from, the first page, square one, and starting all over again with,
Right.
oh, fill out this form. What was your name again? And, like stuff like that. And I think that as time goes on, especially with millennials are demanding that.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, we all do, but more and more we want to, like it says in the Cheers song, where everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
You want to walk in and, whatever business it is, they kind of know your name or know your background, or within a couple minute conversation, they can pull it up on the computer, or they remember something, as opposed to you're just a client number.
Right.
Like, what's your customer number? It's I think we're at some point going to be getting away from that with a lot of things.
A lot of things that I think you're completely correct. I think about an experience that we were just talking about with a very large web host that doesn't really care if they have our business. To us, it's a lot of money, but if they screw up, they're like, big deal. I'm not giving you your money back.
Should we say their name?
It's GoDaddy. I can't stand GoDaddy. Like, they just, to me, did GoDaddy start out legit? I'm sure they did. Does GoDaddy have positive things about them? Absolutely. I use some of their free tools like all the time, but as like a web host, their customer service is horrible. And their service that they provide, come on guys, you can do better than this. Like,
you vent about them to me all the time.
I do, because I have to deal with them, because one of my business, my primary business is doing web design and management of websites. And I have clients who sometimes come in and their site was already hosted with GoDaddy. And so I try not to move them. I try to give them the best experience that they can have with GoDaddy. And I feel like at this point I'm able to do that, to get their site actually loading fast and different things. But, GoDaddy has the ability to snap their fingers and be the absolute cream of the crop. They have the money to do it. They have the size to do it. It's just, I don't know what it's going to take to have that happen with them. I don't know that it ever will.
Well, it's a pretty big company at this point.
Huge.
And I think that they have responsibilities to the shareholders and to whatever.
Of course.
I feel like with GoDaddy, and you would know this subject better than I would, I feel like if you're a smaller business that gets less traffic and you need less space on your website, like your images are small, you don't have a lot of pages on your site, and you get 5, 10, 50 visitors a day to your website, host plans like that are just fine.
GoDaddy's going to be fine. You're going to get for $3.95. You're going to get a comparable, much better plan over at SiteGround.
Yes.
There's other companies who do the same thing. They just don't have the name notoriety.
Yes. But if you want something custom, you have a lot of product, an e-commerce site that has thousands of pages, you're getting thousands of views, visitors a day, and etc. And so then you're going to need to pay more. And you need to make sure that that you're going to pay more, because you're not going to be able to host, a 5,000 page or a 1,000 page website with $3 a month.
Yeah, and GoDaddy has the server plans for those sites. It's just their customer service is, to me, not what I see coming from their competitors.
Gotcha.
Again, because they're smaller companies, they don't, they're maybe less known and they have more of a personal feel, which, kind of relays us back to, this is how it is with everything. We want to know that, if I'm paying this money and I pick up the phone to call you, I'm going to get a person on the other line,
yes,
not a robot for the first 20 minutes.
Yes, because you're just getting aggravated at that point.
And so, it's, thinking about, kind of reining this back into the subject of podcasting. If you're, I think local, which is kind of cool to me, local is seeing a resurgence. Like we're seeing more people being more encouraged and liking the concept and idea of buying local. Like, I want to know, like I at least here in Southern California, I walk into certain restaurants like Tender Greens, and in Tender Greens they show where their vegetables are from.
Yes.
In the area. And so they're basically saying, we're not buying, like the cabbage that you're getting isn't from Chile.
It's from grow local, buy local.
Yeah,
I see that all the time.
And that's an interesting thing, because we have the ability to get the apples from Chile, but we can also get apples from Northern California. And so, and it's a different kind of mentality that's kind of going back to the way that it kind of used to be with our connectivity. And I see that as a trend upward. So if you're a local business who's thinking, I'm going to get squashed out by all these other bigger companies, call Eric because he can help you make sure that your voice in your area is one of the ones that everybody finds.
Thank you. And I believe that the internet and digital marketing is kind of the great equalizer, because you can get at your message much easier than you could have 30 years ago.
Right.
30 years ago, you had print where you were going to advertise in the LA Times, or you're going to advertise in a couple of magazines, and or you're going to do direct mail. And all of them were extremely expensive. And it was all of them. I think that a lot of them were kind of like a shotgun blast, where you just kind of, LA Times had a print of 1 million a day, reach of 3 million. And what are the odds that you advertise there and someone is actually looking to buy your product in that newspaper?
Right.
Like actively searching for
Right.
it. And with digital right now, you can literally bring it down to almost a laser beam, where you can pick the audience that you want, geography, male or female, age group, hobbies and interests that person would be interested in, and literally find your audience. Instead of going after 1 million a day, your audience might be 50,000 a day, but they're the target market.
Yeah. It's like if my garage door spring breaks, I don't want to be like finding hamburger joints in my search.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know that we fix garage door springs. Just heard a story of a friend of mine. She was at her friend's house down in Orange County, and she went to close the garage, and there was a really loud bang, and she had no idea what it was. The whole neighborhood came out. It was like they were like, "What was that sound?" I mean, it was a loud bang. She had no clue. All of a sudden, this guy who was like at the beach, like a block away, he comes. This is in the middle of the night. He's like, "I was down at the beach. I fix garage spring doors, and I heard one pop."
Okay, so he knows the sound of that.
It's like he knows the sound of it. So he's like the reverse of someone who's looking for his service. I just found it amazing. He's like, it's like his bat sign in the sky. I heard a garage door pop. Someone needs me. But if
it's like a different frequency that only he hears.
Yeah, that's an anomaly. That's not going to happen to you more than likely. But if your garage door springs or there's a loud bang, you need to be able to go into Google and say garage door bang. And I think that if enough people type that in and the answer is garage door spring, there's a way to get that ranked.
Agreed.
And it's very specific.
Agreed.
But it's because I need that specific thing, and I'm going to call you and give you my business because I need my garage door to work.
It might be 10 searches a month.
Could be.
But it could be a really good conversion rate.
Right.
You might get all 10, or you might get 2 out of 10, whereas other keywords you might get 10,000 searches a month, and you might get one conversion out of that. So
yeah,
definitely.
And if that guy, that garage door specialist, is on a podcast talking about this very thing, then it's ultimately going to help his business, because if he fixes that when I'm ready to go buy a garage door, I'm probably going to go to him.
Agreed.
So all that to say, I think that really, Eric, what happened is, for everybody listening, I was working for a podcast studio here in the South Bay for a while, and Eric came in, and I started to kind of see a different side of podcasting through his ideas here, which is really to help be the local public radio for a region in a way that we've never had before. Where someone's actually subscribing to hear your content. They're actually paying attention every Tuesday or whenever you put your show out for something new to drop. And so I think it's a new way for local businesses, local entrepreneurs, everything to create that voice of influence in their community where it matters most. Because like you said, if you've got a vet in Torrance, you don't really care about someone in Dallas, Texas finding you or listening to you.
Yeah, what's the point?
Right. But if someone in Torrance is Googling you and they're finding this and they're coming in and bringing their pet, and it creates more of a community around it, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I think probably 10 years later, they're going to be looking back at these days, and it looks like we're on the cusp of another change, another seismic shift when it comes to digital marketing. So it's exciting to kind of be on the forefront of that.
It is, and I don't want to scare people, but there's a term called digital Darwinism that we've really saw we've seen, I think, 2 waves of it happen. The first was in the .com boom at the turn of the century, turn of the millennium. The second happened in 2007, 2008, where a lot of businesses who failed to convert over into online digital things. You really see it big in the giants. You have Borders Books versus Barnes & Noble. So Barnes & Noble managed and has managed, I don't know how, to sail their ship through these waters. But a lot of small businesses who, like mom and pop bookstores I used to hear about, they'd be like, we went out of business. And I sat there thinking, why didn't you start selling your books on Amazon?
Yeah.
But they didn't know. They didn't think to go there.
Well, I think a lot of people thought Amazon was kind of a fad.
Sure.
And, like, what, are you kidding me? I'm going to buy a book, without smelling it and seeing it and reading part of it and, that whole experience of book buying.
Right.
And so I've had people years ago just tell me, they wouldn't be buying books that way. Little do we know, fast forward, Amazon started with that and a couple of other categories, and look where they are now.
I rarely buy print books.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah. So, I think that's pretty much it. I mean,
yeah. Well, thank you for coming in, and Michael Neese, and until next time, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.